who orchestrates another set piece and flicks it for Martial, who squeezed it through Ederson and established a United lead on Derby Day. Another way, James towards Rashford, free in a flash. Here for Pogba, supported now by Daniel James, whose dream comes true. How about it? Lap it up, boy. There's corner pulled back for Pogba! United look the business. Boy, they look the business. What a splendid Manchester United breakthrough goal. This resurgent red storm blows up again. Quite a sight when they're flying, and they're flying again now.
Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. Today we get the rarity this season of talking about back-to-back wins for Manchester United, as they seem to have turned a corner after the international break. A 4-1 win away to Newcastle and an emphatic 2-1 win in Paris, and Marcus Rashford beating Paris Saint-Germain again. With me today, I welcome back Joe and Prashanth, and we'll get started with what looks like it was going to be a difficult game. Newcastle United. United made 5 changes, obviously something that we have been calling for after what was a humiliation against Spurs. And the biggest changes were obviously McTominay and Fred in the midfield, but Mata starting on the right-hand side was also a surprise, really. Against a very strong and almost resurgent Newcastle side, with St. Maximin and Callum Wilson being the main danger men. United started very well. You could say you say you started very well, but it's the wrong United. Newcastle United obviously started very well and got an early goal courtesy of a Luke Shaw deflection. And David De Gea routed to the spot. United got themselves back into the game after half an hour with a corner and Harry Maguire heading in and trying to exercise a few demons after a quite shambolic Nations League game against Denmark. You could say shambolic. Again, unfortunate would also be a fair way to describe it. We'll just go through all of that. Of course, the emphatic way United finished the game with 3 goals in the 86th plus minute. Joe, let's talk about, firstly, the players that impressed you from that match. I mean, who would you say are the standout players for United there?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there a little bit. I think Harry Maguire, I think considering the start of the season that he had, and considering the getting the Nations League that sort of preceded that and the red card and everything that went with it, I thought to sort of bounce back from all of that and show a real resilience was a positive. And aside from that, if you just take his performance in isolation, he obviously got the goal, which I think is important for United, that actually he does contribute with a few more goals because he can be a real threat from corners. But also is just his general defending, that it wasn't the easiest front line to deal with. Callum Wilson's had a good start to the season at Newcastle, a new signing. Obviously, Joe Linton, he's not really hit the heights, but again, when he's up for it and he fancies it, he can be a handful of a striker to deal with. And obviously, Joe Linton and Callum Wilson are very different types of strikers, but I just felt that he didn't give them a sniff all game. Again, you have to applaud Bruno in a way. Obviously missed his first penalty in 4 years, but what I loved about it was his reaction. He didn't sort of hide away, he didn't shirk away from responsibility. He showed a real leadership mentality. Chipped in, obviously got the all-important 3rd goal of the game, 2nd goal for United, obviously, that put us in front. And I do feel it was that type of game that once we got in front, I didn't think we were going to look back. Obviously, Newcastle's heads dropped and sort of they capitulated. So I think for me, those 2 players, just because of the resilience they showed for different reasons, were the ones that stood out for me.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously, Fernandez, we've seen links by rival fans and similarly Manchester United fans to Henrik Mkhitaryan in the way that he tries to create chances and they don't always come off because he tries to play a risky pass. And I think the difference really that showed certainly in the Newcastle game is that Bruno never lets his head drop, whereas Mkhitaryan did, and that's why he really did then move on to Arsenal in what was the worst swap deal in history. But, I think that's the difference. And that's why he obviously captained the side against Paris, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But you talked about Harry Maguire. We have a question from Pratik, who has said, what are Maguire's weaknesses and how can he improve to become the defender we all know he can? Prashant, what's your take on that?
So we all knew when we signed Harry Maguire that he's slow. I mean, it wasn't that we didn't know that he was fast and we are signing a ball playing centre back, etc., etc. We knew he could pass, but we definitely knew he's slow. But we didn't expect that someone could bully him just for fun. I mean, one goal which I keep talking about is the Steven Bergwijn goal last season. The man just went past as if Maguire didn't even stand. That's an obvious a big weakness for us, and that's one big weakness for Harry Maguire as well. And that's probably why Gareth Southgate prefers to play a back three, because then you don't get exposed with lack of pace. Another big weakness which I think will now improve for Maguire is his heading ability. Obviously, when I compare with Lindelof, it's far better. But when I say heading ability in terms of scoring from corners, I really think Maguire should have scored a lot more than what it actually looks. You can argue that the crosses have been bad, poor, etc. But I don't see him winning headers during corners as well. That's one big weakness for me, at least when we are attacking. Not expected, at least when you're playing in Premier League, you've been born and brought up playing in England. The least what you expect is win headers, and he doesn't do that. Another big weakness for me, especially when it comes to Maguire, is that he gives a lot of space when they're trying to attack. So, for example, if you are a dribbler and you want to cut in, Maguire doesn't close him down very quickly. Maguire waits and waits and waits, and by the time, if you have someone like a Callum Wilson, for that matter of fact, he just needs half a chance to shoot. Imagine if you're playing against someone like a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and there is James Rodriguez behind, obviously, who's suspended, who's not available for the Southampton game right now. But imagine the trio of Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and James Rodriguez. They are just knocking on the doors, because both of them, especially Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, would definitely get inside the box a lot often. And if Harry Maguire doesn't deal with those threats immediately, it's a big test for David De Gea. Then we all go back to the same old story. David De Gea should have done better, but the fact is he doesn't get that much time to react in that case. So these are 3-4 weaknesses which I see in Maguire's game. But having said that, we all knew what kind of player we are signing him as well. So,
well, I'll go on to the second part of that, Joe. On those parts, where do you think he can improve?
I think it's very difficult. I mean, he's got, obviously, what he's got is what he's got. And I agree with Prashant. He's not the quickest, but I don't think that that's something you can really improve now at this stage in his career. I think, maybe sharpness of mind so he can sort of read the game a little better and be in the right positions. I agree with Prashant. He does. One thing he could do better is obviously engage a bit quicker with the opponent, instead of allowing them a free run. Sometimes he does seem a bit standoffish. But I think it's more about what Man United can do to help make him look better, if you know what I mean. And I certainly think at times he's not necessarily being helped by the players around him. I don't think Victor Lindelof's an ideal partner for him. I think obviously Eric Bailly, you would think with his attributes he would be, but again, he struggles with his fitness and his consistency to get in the team. And then when he does play, like in the game against Spurs, I just felt like it was too much of an occasion for him. He almost knew that was his chance. And if I play well here, I might be a regular all of a sudden. Yeah. And then you've got, then you look at someone maybe like Axel Tuanzebe. I mean, look at his performance.
Yeah.
And I'm sure against PSG in midweek, he's probably the kind of guy that can play alongside him and be that pace that he needs to sort of cover him. I thought Axel's pace in the channels on 2 or 3 occasions against PSG was really impressive, especially when you consider he hadn't played since December. So I don't really think there's a lot more that Harry can sort of add to his game, apart from maybe like the rest of the team try and become a bit more consistent and think about his positional play and from a tactical point of view. But his attributes of what he's got, he's never going to become quick or anything like that. If anything, he's only going to get a little bit slower. So, United have to be really clever about how they support him, and whether that's by using players that they currently already have in the squad, or obviously looking at investing in the team moving forward in the future with a acquisition of a centre-back who's got those abilities to sort of complement Maguire.
Absolutely. I think that you've hit the nail on the head there. Obviously, we'll talk about Axel Tuanzebe in just a little bit because, I mean, what a fantastic performance against Paris Saint-Germain. And like you said, obviously injury prone. He's actually sidelined for 3 to 4 weeks, I think, with a hamstring injury that I think he picked up against, while playing for the Ivory Coast, and then was on the bench against Newcastle, but I don't think he would ever have come on. We'll move on to before we move on to the Paris game, I will just say credit has to go to Juan Mata, who obviously was fantastic against Newcastle, threading the passes and so crucial in that build-up play leading to the winning goal, along with Donny van de Beek, who I will presume we will get onto in just a little bit. But let's talk about Paris Saint-Germain, because United went into the game, of course, the underdogs. Paris Saint-Germain hadn't actually lost a group stage game at home since 2004. So this was a massive chance for United to really set a precedent for the Champions League, obviously in the aforementioned group of death with Leipzig and Başakşehir. Obviously, PSG did have a lot of injuries. Marco Verratti, Leandro Paredes, Marquinhos wasn't fully fit, to name a few, Mauro Icardi being another one. But United also travelled without Edison Cavani, Harry Maguire and Eric Bailly, and Mason Greenwood, of course, for little injuries or lack of fitness, and etc. But
Or discipline.
Sorry? Or discipline.
Or discipline.
If you believe the reports that came out today, yes.
Yes.
But United put out a back five with a McTominay Fred pivot for the second game running, and of course Martial was back to play as he is not suspended for European duty. Prashant, I mean, United were the better team in Paris, despite Neymar, Mbappe and Di Maria being the front three in a relatively solid midfield at that for PSG. I think this is one of those games where you can say Solskjaer got his tactics absolutely bang on. Would you agree?
Yeah, spot on. I mean, Solskjaer got his tactics spot on right from the word go. I mean, there was no doubt. Once I saw the team sheet, right, like once it was released, I just looked at it and I was like, no way. What are you up to? But then as soon as the game started, I saw everyone pressing the midfield for PSG, because technically think, right, there were only two guys in PSG midfield, it was Ander Herrera and Idrissa Gueye. United won the game in the midfield in the first 10 minutes itself. United pressed and pressed hard. I was very skeptical of Tuanzebe starting and then Shaw on the left side. I was like, look, Shaw as a centre back? No, this is not happening. And you're going to face Mbappe, Neymar. I don't know what are we up for. But then as soon as the game started, you have to give credit to lot of credit to Aaron Wan-Bissaka. We have said it time and again that he's probably one of the best defensive fullbacks what we have in the Premier League. But to do that against two of like the deadliest duos in world football, one of the deadliest duos in world football, his tackles were clean. I mean, once I look at the tackle at Neymar, I was like, no chance you did that. You can't do that inside the box. It was clean as a whistle. But coming back to Solskjaer, he was smart. This is the kind of manager which I want to see more often. When the game was getting a bit dragged, he got on Pogba. Suddenly the formation changed and PSG were caught off guard. They were like, okay, what happening? What is happening right now? We had a fullback, Alex Telles was bombing. Now suddenly Pogba, what is happening? And for the Rashford goal, as much as I would want to give credit to Rashford for the finish, it was all Paul Pogba show, because he just slowed down the game. Because PSG were trying to attack, and then United slowed down the game and we went for one counter and we scored the goal. This is where Paul Pogba is very good at. And this is the kind of game which defines Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's acid test month, right? Remember in the last podcast, we said that probably October is the most difficult month in Ole Solskjaer's managerial history, because he's got games coming thick and fast. 2-3 losses here or there, the knife is surely hanging on his head. And he won't have anything to say on his defense. He can say whatever he wants, but with the kind of PSG performance which United have shown, a lot of fans have got a small confidence now going into the Chelsea game, thinking that, you know what, if we can stop Mbappe and Neymar, probably Ole has got something else for Chelsea game.
Well, I think you've said that exactly. We need to see more of those kind of things, because you think about last season when we put out those performances against City and Tottenham in the same week, and then in between that we drew to Villa and Everton and then lost to Watford, quite embarrassingly, you have to say, the way we crumbled there. I mean, that kind of consistency is what is needed. It's what's needed for a team that wants to compete for a title, compete for trophies. So it's something that we have to see more. I do agree. And I think Solskjaer was fantastic. You've got to give credit to all the players as well. I think defensive monster classes from Axel Tuanzebe and Aaron Wan-Bissaka especially. Fred, I thought, was a fantastic all game. And McTominay playing with one eye, I think, was an excellent credit. But it's one player that was, almost hid his fantastic performances. And Joe, we talked about this just before the podcast. David De Gea in the last two games, or really all season, has been far more consistent, completely lacking of errors, and his distribution has been fantastic as well, which is something we haven't seen so much of since we've played short out from the back. But David De Gea appreciation.
Yeah, mate. I never doubted it. Really, I think it was the old cliche, wasn't it, that form's temporary, class is permanent, and all that. And I think I made the point to you that I think what's helped him this season is the increasing competition. I mean, for the first time, I do genuinely think that his place is under threat. To be fair, in Dean Henderson, they have a goalkeeper there that could. I think De Gea is literally one or two mistakes away from being replaced, and that's the fear he's got. Although Romero has been a fantastic number 2 for United, and he has, and whenever he's been called upon, he's never really let us down. I don't ever feel like Mourinho or even Van Gaal or who brought him in, or even Solskjaer, I've ever seen him as a potential to be a number 1 over a sustained period of time, unless De Gea got injured. I just don't think that they saw it that way, because obviously, with his age and things like that, and just the profile of him, I just feel like he was only ever going to be a cup goalkeeper for us. But he's done that brilliantly. He's a type of goalkeeper that's happy to come to a big club and sit on the bench, and that can't be understated as well, because I think Solskjaer's going to realise as this season goes on, especially if De Gea makes any mistakes and he doesn't give Henderson a chance, he's going to come under increasing pressure from the dressing room as well, because not only is Dean Henderson going to be putting pressure on, because he's not the quiet type, there's also going to be De Gea's teammates. If they see him making mistakes and Solskjaer continues to stick with him, they'll start to question it as well, and that can cause divisions in the dressing room. So I think it was always a big decision to keep the two of them this season. I mean, if it works and everything goes well, then it's fantastic to have two keepers of that calibre. But I think if De Gea goes back to his old self from a couple of seasons ago, it might get tricky for Ollie, but we'll see. But I mean, the opening start to the season, he's been faultless, to be fair. Few of the games, I mean, the Tottenham game we let in 6, and I can't really think of any of them that De Gea could have done anything about. It was more due to shambolic defending and the fact that we were unfairly down to 10. And I just think, whenever he's been called upon this season, he's made good saves, but he's not only making good saves, he's making clean saves as well. Like he's saving the ones you're expecting to save now, but he's also saving some of those miracle ones that he was saving back 3-4 years ago when he was in the form of his life.
That Callum Wilson one and the Kazawa ones stand out. I think both of us there. And
the special thing about the Wilson one, if you watch it again, is he doesn't just get his hand to it. He almost sort of moves his arm in a way to shovel it away as well. Because if it just hits his arm, it just sort of tamely bounces back towards Wilson. But he almost sort of guides a pass with his arm out, so it sort of goes away from Wilson to Luke Shaw, who was then obviously able to start a counter attack. And that was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you mentioned Romero. We might as well go on to it. That was the conclusion to our poll, was talking about how Romero has been unfairly treated by Manchester United. Of course, denied a move away to Everton, it would seem, for an £8 million transfer on deadline day, and has been excluded from both the Champions League and Premier League 25-man squads. Of course, there are still links with him to move away to the MLS. And could potentially go back to Argentina as well. Prashant, what do you think about this? Do you think this is something to do with Ed Woodward, or do you think this is Solskjaer's fault? How do you see this being? Where do you see this being a problem? From what point?
I think you have to blame both of them to a certain extent. I wouldn't just put it on Woodward. I just wouldn't put it on Solskjaer as well. But having said that, Sergio Romero hasn't done anything grand to even command something that, you know what, I'll be second choice. He was always happy being second choice throughout his career. And like Joe said, whenever he's been called upon, he's done a good job. And we have, if I talk like a proper businessman, you did a service, I paid for you. Now I no longer need you. But what's my problem here is the way he's been treated. Yeah, I understand that, it's football is business at the end of the day. Now I no longer need you. I have got a Dean Henderson who's going to replace David Deo in the future, whatever will happen. But it shouldn't have gone public this manner.
Mm.
I am not that, kind of logic which I'll buy that Everton could have got, massive boost had Sergio Romero played for them. I don't think so. I mean, yeah, Jordan Pickford has made errors. He would have definitely strengthened Everton to a certain extent. But it isn't that they were going to win titles with Sergio Romero at the back, right? So even if it was 8 million move for him was decent. But yeah, United feel that 4 wins out of 4 and Everton are looking like a top threat, etc., etc. Doesn't make any sense to me. Now, why I said it's a fault for both of them, Woodward and Ole, is that you kept the player, right? So the window is over, you kept the player. The least you could have done is just include him in the squad. God forbid one of them gets injured. Then you have the option to include him. But might as well just mention it. One, everyone knows he's not going to play a lot this season. We don't know what is the status of Dean Henderson in Champions League either, because clearly he's in the cup games. Right, clearly. So the least you could have done is to just, as just a matter of respect for the man, for whatever he has done. And like Joe said, right, you can't have a keeper who's always happy being the second choice. He was always happy, right? Has he ever come out and said, you know what, I want to be Man United number one? No, nor has Lee Grant for that matter of fact. Right, who's anyways doing his coaching badges. Apart from one good game against us, I don't think Lee Grant has done anything worthwhile as well. So if you can keep Lee Grant in the squad, why not him? Why Woodward? Why am I blaming Woodward? He could have forget Sancho and everything what happened in the window. The least you could have done is let this guy go happily wherever he wants to play. That's the least you deserve as a person who has given 4-5 years at this club. He came in during Van Gaal's era. Van Gaal got him. Always the second choice. Always. You can blame that he was comfortable, etc., etc., etc. But I don't think this is the right way to treat a professional. The same thing is which is happening with Mesut Ozil at Arsenal right now.
Mm.
The ethos are being questioned of this club, right? It's the ethos of this club.
Well, at least we're not sacking Fred the Red. That's at least something where we can take, that's the one thing we can say. We're a little bit above Arsenal. But no, you're right. I think every player wants to play football. No player wants to just sit on the bench and collect money just because they can. But, it's a real shame about Sergio Romero because he's been he's a fan favourite, really. And I think his stats really back up his qualities. I think it's 50 clean sheets in 80 appearances, or maybe it's 40 clean sheets in 50 or 60 appearances.
Yeah, 48 or something.
48. Okay, well, it's something like that, and he's been fantastic deputy, but never, like Dean Henderson actually said. Dean Henderson said, "I want to be Manchester United's number one," and I think that's the difference. I think that's why he's been put down in the order, but that shouldn't. The way it's been happening is obviously unacceptable, I think. We'll move on to, of course, what's happening this weekend and on Wednesday with Manchester United entertaining Chelsea in a trio of home games for them in the next few weeks. And it's going to be an interesting one. Of course, United are winless at Old Trafford so far this season with 2 horrific and embarrassing defeats. But we're hoping that the momentum that has been gathered since the international break hopes United turn a corner. Joe, we obviously know that we've got a few missing players here and there. Martial, of course, will remain suspended. Eric Bailly is injured, and it's a doubt whether Edison Cavani will be match ready for the match. But everyone else seems to be fit to play. A question we've had from Karan says that the McTominay and Fred pivot is our most balanced when we play, and it allows us to unleash our attacking prowess to its full ability. Would you agree with that? And would you start them for the third game running?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. Do you start them for the third game running at this early stage of the season? Is anyone ready to play 3 games on the bounce, unless really required? I agree. They're probably, in terms of a pivot, in terms of a partnership, weirdly, they're probably the one that works the best. They probably complement each other the best. I think when you put Scott next to Matic, for some reason, it doesn't work. And I think if you put Fred next to Matic, it's just not quite as effective. But yet, when you play Fred and Scott McTominay, it kind of is, which is weird. I don't really know what it is. I don't think either of them necessarily usually progress the ball forward very well. But actually, against PSG, that Fred especially was doing a fantastic job of getting the ball to Fernandes to sort of start executing some counter-attack sort of thing. So, yeah, and I just think with it being Chelsea as well, I just think, all Chelsea's strength, as we know, is in their attacking third. So, they're going to be a big threat to United going forward, especially with our defence, although the defence has been better over the last couple of games. But, there's an opportunity to get them on the counter going the other way. And if you remember the game at the start of last season, that's how we basically executed that 4-0 win. I think, if you remember, I think we were dominated for large parts of that game, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
United were just very clinical on the counter attack, and that's how they got the goal. So I'd actually like to see them put a similar formation out to what they put out against PSG. I don't think there's anything wrong with going even 3-5 at the back, whatever you want to call it, against Chelsea. He may be a little bit put off because obviously he went with that formation in the FA Cup semi-final last season, and they didn't play that well, if you remember, in the semi-final. But he also made a lot of changes to the team for that game as well. And I think that it wasn't so much the formation, it was more the changes to the team that didn't work in that FA Cup semi-final. So I think he played 5 at the back of the game at Stamford Bridge as well, didn't he, last season in the league? And it was fantastic there. I think that was one of our best performances last season. I think we won 2-0, didn't we, or something? It was a
2-0,
real 2-0, 2-1, I'm not sure, but a real clinical performance from us. And I think if Maguire's coming back into the team, I think he'll benefit from playing in a back 5 as well, because I just think he needs a bit of extra support at the moment because of obviously the form that he's been in. So I think because of who we're playing this weekend, if we'd have been playing a sort of bottom 6 team, I think I might have switched it up a little bit. You don't really want to be playing Fred and McTominay in the middle of the park when you're playing a bottom 6 team, but you're playing Chelsea, for however inconsistent Chelsea have been this season and poor at times, you have to respect them going forward because that's where they are strong. That's what Lampard knows what he's doing when it comes to coaching, and that's where all his quality is on the pitch. So, yeah, I like the idea of playing those 2 again if they can manage 3 games in a row.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. I think they provided. You're right. It is a weird complementary system with them. One thing I will help you out on that. It was a 2-0 win at Stamford Bridge, and I can say that with certainty because it was the first time in Premier League history Manchester United registered 2 clean sheets in the league against Chelsea. Obviously, doing the double against them for the first time since the 2011-2012 season, and obviously scoring 6 goals in the proceeds as well as a 2-1 win in the Carabao Cup. I think 4th round. But one thing is that United haven't actually, in each of their Premier League games, they have conceded the first goal, despite managing to win 2 and obviously losing 2. But Prashant, is there any way that you think we can keep out the Chelsea front 3? And if so, how would you line up that defensive 5, if it is going to be 5?
So one player who we forgot to mention the PSG game was a player who played for 67, 68 minutes. And he just showed a small glimpse of what he can do, Alex Telles. This is the first time I've seen a left back after a long time, someone who loves to cross. The kind of left backs they usually don't cross. Luke Shaw is great in overlapping. Brandon Williams blows hot and cold because obviously he's more of a right-sided player than a left-sided player. So I'm pretty excited for Alex Telles. And, I just have this weird feeling that for the Chelsea game, if Alex Telles starts, he'll be the key. For 2 reasons, what I believe. Like Joe said, Chelsea are extremely good side when they go in the final attacking third, right? People can say whatever they want about Kai Havertz or Timo Werner, but they're 2 quality players. We all know that, it's a matter of time they'll start clicking. And especially Werner, because he will like to drift outside and then get someone in for the goal. And Werner does that always. He's been doing this since he was in Leipzig. He will drag outside the team. And this is where someone like an Alex Telles will have extra responsibility of not only attacking, but to defend smartly as well. Because somewhere down the line, I believe that this United defense is just one bit away from a mistake. So they have to be very careful. Even if you play a back five, sometimes in a big game, if you consider an early goal, then it can just like you can just get flat completely. We saw that the Spurs game, right? One quick goal and we were just flat. We didn't even look like a team who wants to play football. Even in the FA Cup versus Chelsea, for the first 25-27 minutes, we were okay. As soon as the Eric Bailly injury happened, suddenly everything went kaput. So I'm not sure, whether Ole will go with the same back five or back four, whatever. But if we go for a back, I'm expecting a 4-3-3 because, like Joe, I completely agree. United should go for the counter-attack approach. Uh, for that, you need to play a back four, and I would definitely bench Luke Shaw for this game. I will start Alex Telles, and then I'll partner Maguire if he's fit. If not, if Maguire isn't fit, I'll definitely start Twinzabe and Lindelof because they both look very comfortable together. Especially Victor Lindelof, who had a very good game against PSG because he read most of the dangers. We may not give him credit because of other standout players, but Lindelof had a very good game. So Lindelof and Twinzabe if Maguire isn't fit. If Maguire is fit, Maguire and Twinzabe, then Lindelof goes to the bench. Right back is Aaron Van Bissaka, who wants to play for England sooner or later again. Then in the midfield, I would start Nemanja Matic. Uh, for reasons because Chelsea aren't going to give us space in this game at all. We all know that Lampard likes to block the midfield so much that his attack kind of, starts overcrowding in your defense. So I'll start Matic and Pogba, and then I'll have Bruno and Van de Beek. I really hope Ole Gunnar Solskjaer starts Van de Beek because once the midfield is crowded, you will have spaces in between those lines. Chelsea's defense is shambolic, just like us. People don't berate them because they haven't considered six, but the defense is full of holes. Player like Van de Beek, he has shown consistently that what he can do if you give him space. I'll start four of them in the midfield, probably a diamond, a 4-3-3 or in a 4-2-3-1 as some may call it. I'll definitely start Rashford, who will play. He's in the form of his life. So I'll start Rashford. There is no Martial. So if Mason Greenwood is fit enough to play, he'll be my number 9 for the game, and Mata on the right side if possible. Imagine the midfield four, right? Bruno. Did I mention 12 players in total? Sorry, my bad. So Van de Beek instead of Mata. My bad. So so in that sense, I have an attacking midfield of Bruno, Van de Beek, Pogba. 3 of them. Obviously, I'm expecting. What did Pogba always say? I'm a box-to-box midfielder. I can attack and defend. Your game, mate. Your place, wherever you want to play this time.
Well, absolutely. Well, I mean that would answer Emmanuel's question on how to play Pogba, Van de Beek, and Telles against Chelsea. That would absolutely work a treat. I think if United could take Chelsea on toe to toe, I think their wide players could be covered and their wing backs can be tracked back by the wider players in the diamond. Joe, you seem more set on a back five then. So how would you line up at Old Trafford?
Yeah, I think if both teams go at this 4-3-3, I can see it being a bit of a cricket score, to be honest. I can see goals because I just don't think either team are that defensively solid to get away with. I understand. I totally respect what Prashant's saying, and I would love to see that team, to be fair, but I just don't feel like I trust my defence enough to be able to go. Well, not that I don't trust them enough, but I want more than a high-scoring draw from this game. I feel like we could really.
You need 3 points, more importantly.
Our league position and the way it is in the start we've had, we could really do with the 3 points, and also it would be a great psychological blow on another top 4 rival as well to get one up on them. And we have got a good record against Chelsea. I mean, I can't remember how many times we played them last season. It's ridiculous. I think we played about 4 times. I think we won 3 of them. So, we've found a way. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, the only thing putting me off this idea of a back five is just obviously how it went in the FA Cup against Chelsea. But I think that was like more down to the personnel changes. But I'd probably stick with the sort of similar sort of lineup to what we put out against PSG. The problem when you have 3-5-2 is I don't really see how you can get Van de Beek into the team. Yeah. I've not really seen enough at the moment to suggest that he can be like a defensive midfielder. So obviously your 3 at the back would be Xavier, Lindelof. I know keep Luke Shaw left centre back. He's done it a few times now over last season and this season, and he looks to play that. He plays that position really well, actually. I think a lot of it's due to the fact that he doesn't have to bomb up and down the pitch as much, if you know what I mean. I think that suits him from a fitness point of view. So I think, he's good in that position. I go Lindelof, Xavier, Shaw. If Maguire's not back, and then obviously the wing backs will be Xavier. I agree with Pashan. I think was really impressive against PSG. Wan-Bissaka on the other side. I think when he plays as a wing back, I think he feels like he can go forward a bit more. He's got that license to, because that's what the formation demands. Obviously, I think sometimes in a 4, he gets a little bit confused. Should I or shouldn't I? And then he goes with the default, what he feels he's stronger at, and sort of hesitates and stays back a bit more. But yeah, I think if they are going to play a three at the back, then I think they'll have 2 of the midfield sort of 3, if you like, that are more sort of defensive minded. So it'd be Fred, McTominay, Matic, Fred, however you want to look at it. And then obviously Bruno in that more attacking role. And then the 2 up front would be interesting, because obviously we got no Martial. We know Rashford will play and he's available, but what happens with Greenwood? What do we believe? Has he got an injury? Is it a niggle? Is it discipline? Does he play that second striker? Or do they play Mata and maybe Bruno as a second striker? I don't know. So it all depends on who's available for the rest of that formation to work, I think.
Absolutely. I probably am more likely to think that Solskjaer will put a back 5 in if Maguire's not fit. I think if Maguire is fit, he might be more inclined to do a back 4, but we'll have to see. Again, Tuanzebe is a question mark, because obviously that was his first game in 10 months. So if he isn't 100%, I don't think he'll risk him. And maybe it'll be Lindelof, Maguire, or then Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw maybe. I'm not too sure on that, but I do think that Telles will start regardless, because, I mean, you can't not after the debut he had. Again, I agree McTominay and Fred will start. Certainly Fred, who didn't put a foot wrong all game. I'd like to see Pogba play, but I think we might be playing a 5. So if then no, and then we have Bruno and maybe Daniel James will get another start, because I didn't think he was too bad against Newcastle. Maybe he made the wrong choice every now and then, but the runs he made...
But how long?
Sorry?
Isn't he been doing it for quite some time? Wrong choices.
Yeah, that is true. But then he does create space for Rashford or Bruno as well, because his runs...
Because of his pace.
Because of his pace. So that would be my lineup. But again, I'd love to see Cavani start, because I think he's a fantastic player and could cause a lot of problems. I can just... we just had an article out about the Sinosaurs at Old Trafford, link similarities to Zlatan Ibrahimovic, of course. So hopefully he can do a similar role there.
I think, can I just say quickly, I think one of the biggest players that will probably benefit from him being in the team is someone like Edison Cavani, really. I think you look at Telles and the strengths of his game, it's all about getting down that left flank and whipping balls into the box. And, our team generally, our strikers aren't the best at attacking the ball in the air and aren't the best headers of the ball. And I think that it's not something that Telles has to take out of his game because he's become a Man United player. I think that's up to the players around him to become better at that, because why wouldn't you want to take advantage of crosses? They're such a source of goals. You look at Liverpool, I mean, the amount of goals that they score from crosses, and you wouldn't say that they have the best aerial strikers in the world. When you look at Salah and Mane, they're not the tallest, but they find a way of getting on the end of these crosses, not always necessarily with the head, but just with intelligent runs to near post and back post and getting the ball in the back of the net. And I think when Edison Cavani plays, he is actually different to all the other strikers we have, in the sense that he will attack the ball in the air in the box. He will put himself in positions where Telles feels he can cross the ball in for him and it can be met with his head. And we know what a competitor Cavani is and how aggressive he is. He's a very strong player, very imposing player. And I think when he does go to attack balls, it's very difficult to stop him in the air.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll have to look at that and see. Obviously, I think from set pieces, he was fantastic against Paris Saint-Germain, and Maguire's another one I think could massively benefit from it. But that's all up for suggestion against Chelsea on Saturday. Predictions, guys. For me, I'm going to go for. I'm going to have faith, and I'm going to say 2-1 win, and it will be narrow, but it will be an emphatic one because a win would take United above Chelsea in the table. What about for you, Prashant?
I will say the same. 2-1 win for United.
Joe?
Yeah, again, I'll probably have to say depends on the formation that both teams put out. But actually, I will say I think I'm going to go 3-2 United. I do think there will be goals in this either way, but I think United. I'm just so sure there'll be goals in this. I think you look at Chelsea; they've already had a couple of 3-3s. You know, we haven't kept a clean sheet yet. Like you said, we've conceded the first goal in every one of the games. Yeah, I just think there's got. I mean, you watch now; it'll probably be 0-0. It'll probably be the worst 0-0 you've ever seen. That's usually how it goes when you make these predictions. But no, I think it's a must not lose for United because obviously. Well, it's really important that they win it, but if they was to lose it as well, I think that would be really, and it would quite easily undo all the good work they've done against Newcastle and PSG because of the nature of the start that they've had now. United, I think over the next couple of months, they're only one defeat away from slipping into crisis again, and questions being asked of Ollie as well. So I think, unfortunately, they have to keep the foot on the pedal and get a win in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, United haven't actually lost to Chelsea since 2017 when Alvaro Morata strike was enough for the Blues at Stamford Bridge. And United haven't actually...
Annoying game. That was one annoying game.
It was. Oh, dear. Because I think Bailly came off injured and then Phil Jones came on and then they scored.
Exactly.
It was just a nothing game as well, if I remember. It was a 0-0. It was a drab 0-0. It was a typical United performance at Stamford Bridge, not really showing a lot of intent. And yeah, I mean, one good ball from.
I like the way you said typical United performance at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah. You know, they tend to play. They don't tend to have great games at places like Stamford Bridge and Anfield. I don't know what it is. The two grounds where I never feel like they feel comfortable, if you know what I mean. It's strange, but then obviously you look at over the last couple of seasons, especially last season, they were brilliant at Stamford Bridge. So I don't know. Maybe they've got over the curse and the hoodoo.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see on Saturday. And then, obviously, we will probably play Chelsea 6 times this season just for no reason whatsoever. Yeah. But we'll move on to the Europa League. I'm getting used to the Europa League. That's all.
No.
Moving on to the Champions League. Red Bull Leipzig are coming to Old Trafford as well on Wednesday evening. It's obviously a high-pressing, energetic side that love to play on the counter-attack. And with a back five as well. And we were looking to sign a couple of their players, which still remain in Germany, Deo Upamecano and Dani Olmo, who have actually starred for Leipzig so far this season, and certainly since they've signed by really quite shrewd business, which is something we've seen very little of at Old Trafford of late. But they obviously love to play on the counter, which is something United obviously do in big games too. Prashant, how do we stop this side that are actually top of the Bundesliga as we speak?
Yeah, so the only way to stop this Leipzig side is pack the midfield. There are two players who I don't know why haven't big clubs ever gone for both of them. One is Marcel Sabitzer, second is Emil Forsberg. If these two are kept in check, I don't think Leipzig will be a bigger issue for us. And you know what's the best part? The more you clog the midfield, these two get even better and better. So that's a big problem for us in that case. So, but I really think it'll be a goal fest, especially against Leipzig, because like you rightly said, both teams are going to play on counter. It'll be a curious case who defends better on that day. We've been wanting to sign Dayot Upamecano for quite some time. Not to forget, Leipzig have made a very smart acquisition, which is Kluivert. Justin Kluivert, who played for Roma, who's on loan right now, Patrick Kluivert's son. So Justin Kluivert. So basically, what has happened is that they're going to miss Timo Werner because 49 goals a year. That's what Timo Werner scored for them in total. So they're definitely going to miss Timo Werner. But having said, Kluivert is a very smart addition. He will definitely drag our defenses very wide because that's what he likes to do. But how do we stop them? To be very honest with you, it's going to be a case of who's going to defend better on that day, because Leipzig team will not stop pressing. That's exactly what Julian Nagelsmann is known for. He's called as the baby Mourinho for a reason, because bigger the stage, he likes to show his, trump in the pack kind of an approach. He does that. He will come to Old Trafford. He's always said that, it's one of his big dreams to play at Old Trafford as a manager, as a football player, which he couldn't do sadly. But he definitely wanted to have a game at Old Trafford. The stage is his. It depends on whether it's Ole who will act as villain for him or whether he gets out as a hero.
Absolutely. Of course, it's a massive game. Second game of the Champions League group stages, and it would almost, like you said, like with the Chelsea game, if United were to lose somewhat embarrassingly at Old Trafford, it would undo a lot of the good work done in Paris. With that being said, Joe, would you start Dean Henderson for his Champions League debut at Old Trafford?
Yeah, no, I did wonder yesterday whether Dean Henderson might start, and that sets the precedent that Dean Henderson would get because obviously the talk has been that he'll be the cup goalkeeper this year, and I didn't know whether that obviously stretched out to meaning cup as in like the European Cup as well, you know what I mean? But obviously I think from what I'm gathering, it looks like it's just the domestic cups that he'll play at. But then again, don't rule out Henderson becoming number one before the end of the season. Like I say, De Gea I think De Gea is literally just one or two mistakes away from losing that shirt. So that's, eventually he might get his chance in the Champions League. But I think if he was going to play him in the Champions League, I think he would have started. Well, why not start against PSG? It makes no difference, really. I mean, yes, you could argue they've got better attackers than what Leipzig have got, but you wouldn't. Why, if you're not going to start him against PSG, why would you all of a sudden start him at Leipzig unless it's because you want it to be at Old Trafford? But again, I don't really see what difference that makes at the moment, because obviously with no crowd and whatever as well, it doesn't really make a lot of difference. So no, I think they'll stick with De Gea. But I mean, let's be honest, if he does go Henderson, I don't worry so much, because like we said before, Henderson is a fantastic second choice goalkeeper now. And actually the couple of games that he has played in it, like De Gea, he's done nothing wrong whatsoever. So they're both going pound for pound. It's almost like two boxers in the middle of the ring at the moment. One's hitting one, one's hitting the other. And they just each of them, they don't want anything bad to happen to the team, but you can see each of them are hoping that one will make a mistake. So it gives them an opportunity to just get a glimmer of hope. And I think they'll think, well, when I get my chance, I've got to take it. I think Henderson knows he can play as well as he wants in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. He's never going to be able to do enough in those games to think, right, he's done enough to play the Premier League. But what he needs is obviously for De Gea to have a Tottenham game or something, or a Watford game or something like that, and that's where this chance will come.
Absolutely. Prashant, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, not exactly to add on it, but I have a question to you guys. Do you think this underdog tag is helping us somewhere? Because in the PSG game, we were the second favorites, the favorites of PSG. In the Chelsea game, I'm not sure if we are the underdog, because both teams are having a similar, kind of a season to a certain extent. But the Leipzig game, again, we are the underdog. So do you think this underdog tag is kind of helping us to go out and play freely? Because everyone expected us to, get kicked out against PSG, and we turned the game on its head. And the same thing everyone is expecting versus Leipzig as well. So do you think this underdog tag is slightly helping us to express freely?
Joe, you go for it.
Do you want me to go for it? Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, to be honest, because I think actually you would think that it is, and I think there's a lot of players in here that probably do like being underdog, but actually the more and more you listen to this team, I'm not sure they really thought they were the underdog the other game against PSG. There were some comments that came out from Axel Tuanzebe, I think, after the game.
Yeah,
we are the
PSG are a big club, but we are bigger.
Let's not forget that. And he's got a point, because when it comes to European history, as good as PSG are right now, but when it comes to football history and European history, they're not anywhere close to Manchester United. And actually, when you even recent history, I mean, growing up myself as a boy in the 90s and as a kid, and even in the early 2000s, the French teams I used to see in the Champions League were Marseille, Lyon, and Monaco. PSG every now and again would qualify. They'd have a decent season. They might have won the league one of the years in the 90s. I'm not quite sure, but a little bit like Manchester City, they've only become relevant in the last few years since they've had some investment. So I think it's interesting that you make that point, because I think everybody saw them as underdogs in terms of the media and the the bookies and things like that, and maybe a lot of fans. But I think Ollie's trying to install a sort of mentality in these players now, where you're sort of seeing this rhetoric, especially in media after games, saying that we are Manchester United and we should be coming to PSG and we should be winning these games. It was interesting after the PSG game. I think I watched 3 interviews. I saw the transcript from the Tuanzebe interview. I saw De Gea get interviewed and Rashford, and all 3 of them at one point touched on the fact that we are Manchester United. We should be coming here on Champions League nights.
Bruno said it. Bruno said it in the pre-conference as well.
Yeah, it shouldn't. We don't see ourselves as the underdog, but whether that's to sort of because they don't want to look like an underdog, or whether that's something because Solskjaer's trying to instill. That's why I think it's a really interesting question, because from everybody else's point of view, we were the underdog, and I think there's a lot of players in that team that I think will thrive on not having the pressure on them. Some of them look to struggle a lot, I feel, when the pressure's on them. So, yeah, it's an interesting balance, really, about how they go about it, because I don't think it's a theory that can work for Manchester United in the long term, because I want Manchester United players to feel like they are the best players and that they are 10 feet tall. So it probably works for a little while, but then sooner or later they have to get back to remembering they're Man United playing. You're just not an underdog when you play for Manchester United. You're the big dog. You should be the top dog. So,
yeah.
I think if we get past 2020 and things are looking relatively decent, we're not, without a shadow of a doubt, out of the title race. We're not sunk by teams we shouldn't be. We're not playing as badly as we have been, certainly this season. We're still in the Carabao Cup. We've qualified from the Champions League. I think then that will come through. I think January is an important part, because obviously I think we play Liverpool and we play Liverpool at Anfield, I believe. On the 1st of January or something, maybe.
Yeah, New Year's fixture, I think. You're right.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I think that underdog thing will work for this sort of period where it's going to be difficult for United. Obviously, Arsenal, Everton, Leipzig, Başakşehir, and then Başakşehir again. And it's the Champions League 6 games in 8 weeks, which is a really, really tough period. And we'll have to get through that. I think we're also playing West Ham away, which is looking like a bit of a troublesome place. But I think it's not long term. I think if we can get to, like I said, if we get to January, maybe if we could win the Carabao Cup, it's not unfeasible. Obviously, I think a few big teams have gone out already. So I think if we can win the Carabao Cup, I think then we've got to push for everything else, and then I think that's when the mentality comes back. So we'll have to see. But we'll move a little bit closer to home. Leipzig. Predictions. Joe, how do you think this game is going to go?
I think score prediction. I'm confident with United. I watched Leipzig in the semi-finals of the Champions League last year against PSG, and actually PSG did something similar to what we did against them the other night, and they counter-attacked RB Leipzig. And I think when you play a counter-attacking style against RB Leipzig, you can expose them a little bit, because one thing they will do is they'll come to Old Trafford and they'll have a go, because they know no other way. They're not going to, as good a coach as Nagelsmann is, he's not going to set up a team to just get a 0-0 or a draw or to try and shut up shop. He only knows that one way to play. They'll be on the front foot. So I think there'll be opportunities for United to counter-attack, and if they do it as well as they did against PSG, they'll be successful. I don't think it'll be as easy, because I think RB Leipzig's defence is better than PSG's. But I'm going to go for 2-1, another 2-1.
Thank you. Prashant, would you agree with that?
Slight different prediction. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. It'll be a 3-3 draw. We will score, they will score. I'm expecting a draw. It's like Joe said, I completely agree. They don't have any other option. They have to go all guns out. They just can't sit back and defend. That's not their strength. They tried to do that in the PSG game, and PSG just ran riot. Especially Neymar. Neymar could have buried them 5-6 goals on his own had it not been his shambolic finishing in that semi-final. So it's going to be 2 counter-attacking teams at their best. I really hope we are at our best at Old Trafford. So I'm expecting a high-scoring draw. I don't think either of the side has got enough to convincingly beat each other. But if we do beat, it'll be a miracle.
See, for me, I think this is where Van der Beek gets his first start. I think he'll play instead of Bruno, but I think maybe even alongside him. I'd probably think that we could have shored up if we get a good performance against Chelsea. I think we might shore up a little bit more. Because to be fair, I think we were relatively unlucky to concede against PSG the way we did, especially. So I might go for a 2-0 here, and maybe we'll start getting a few more clean sheets in the Premier League too. But we'll have to see in the next 7 days whether United can continue their excellent run going into this difficult set of fixtures in October to November. That's all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you to both Joe and Prashant for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you both, guys.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any questions or any topics you would like for us to discuss, please comment below on the Twitter poll or on the YouTube video or Twitter or Facebook post. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for all of our content.